Oh, I've come out down to the rice field this morning because it's such a beautiful day. I brought my camera with me. Rice is close to being harvested. It's looking absolutely fantastic. Some of it is already harvested. I was down here yesterday afternoon and this little patch here had not been harvested, so they've just done it in the last 12 hours or so. And then I was coming to have a look at this structure, or what used to be a structure. It's called a sala, and it's a little shelter that's the people who work the rice fields use when they are wanting a rest, wanting to take a break, but it's kind of fallen into a state of disrepair. I've photographed the sala a number of times over the years. They are really interesting little structures that are just scattered through the rice fields and just around to give people a bit of a break, a bit of shade from working in the fields, whether they're planting or weeding or harvesting or whatever they're doing. That these types of structures are quite common throughout the whole country, but now they seem to be of less importance because many of them are just being let go. This one I've watched over the last few years just literally start sinking into the rice field as the water comes into the fields. When the ground's flooded ready for planting rice, it gets really soft, and so the foundations on these things just give way, and they can get some interesting leans on them. And this of course makes it a little bit more of an interesting picture. So I'm not usually much of a photographer of landscapes or of architecture or anything like that. I've generally concentrated my photography more towards taking pictures of people and things that they're doing, and particularly living in northern Thailand, I love photographing the different ethnic minorities, the hill tribe people. So coming down to the rice fields, photographing static buildings, that whether they're still standing up or not is something a little bit unusual to me, but I do enjoy it, and I thought, I better get down here this morning and hopefully the light will be good, and it's pretty nice actually, so I can be here to take some photos of the sala one last time when there is still some rice around it. I was initially a little bit disappointed that they'd harvested this piece here, but I'm going to make the most of it and see how I can include that and the rows and the mud and the water sitting there as part of my photograph. So that's enough talking about it. Let's get into it. I find myself a good location. I've done it a number of times, but it's always a little bit different. Coming down here with my wife's camera this morning because mine doesn't have a strap on it. So first thing is adjust the diopter so I can actually see through the camera. There we go. Pretty good. So I'm photographing with my favourite 35mm f1.4 lens. I find it's good for landscapes. It's also one of my favourite portrait lenses, believe it or not. It's not a typical portrait lens, but I really enjoy it when I'm taking photographs of people for environmental portraits, and people who when I photograph people who are working or artists working, this is my go-to lens. So I'm mixing it up a bit. Some I'm getting more of the sky, some I'm getting more of the foreground. I'm photographing in manual mode, as I always do, and so I'm also bracketing my exposures so I can really play around and really experiment a bit more with the results when I'm processing them. It's one of my favourite photographs of the sailor from a few years ago. I got really unorthodox with my exposures, and they were the pictures that I like the most, so I'll continue to experiment in the same way. And look at the colour of this rice. It is just absolutely beautiful. So incredible. I love it that during the growing season the rice changes colour quite significantly from a very bright iridescent green, then it gets darker, and then at this stage when it's close to harvest or at time for harvest it's very yellow. I'll just take an opportunity to photograph these grasses here that look gorgeous. Okay, let's have a look from the other side. Obviously can't get down into the rice fields. They're still actually very, very wet. Usually they let that water out or stop the water coming in prior to harvest, so it makes it easier for the machine, easier for the tractor to get in there. But this field still looks quite wet, certainly too wet to walk in with my shoes. If I had my gumboots I'd be alright, but I didn't realise it was still so wet when I came out, so I will stick to the ridges through the rice fields, which over the years I've got pretty used to walking along these. They're fairly narrow and can be a bit precarious sometimes. Now I'm coming around, having a look at it from a few different angles. So different backgrounds, but also different lighting. Got the sun behind me in this location. I always encourage people that when you're photographing a subject, when you find a good subject that you find really interesting, take photos from more than one angle. Have a good look at it, and really view your subject from a few different angles, with different backgrounds, with the light in different locations, and then you can really get a better feel for your subject and get some different views and more interesting photographs, because the first angle that you take a photograph from isn't always the most interesting angle. I think that'll do it. Don't need to do too much. It's only so much you can do with a static subject like this with restricted access, but I've got a few different angles of it. Some closer in, maybe I'll do a couple of closer in photos. I'll avoid that bit of background. Yeah, it's nice there with the hill behind it and a bit more drama. Looks good. Okay, now I'll just go and have a quick look at this other sala that's just down here. This is another one that I've photographed a number of times. Just a fabulous location. It's so pretty. And again, because the clouds today are looking lovely, I'm making sure to vary my compositions enough so that in some I'm getting more of the rice and less of the sky, and then in others I'm getting more of the sky and not much at all of the rice. I'll walk along here. There's a little pathway going up to the sala. Yeah, that's on quite a good lean. Don't know how much longer it'll last. This one used to have a hammock hanging in it. Just outside there was a bit of a roof. Yeah, it's certainly seen better days. Looks like some of it might be down here in the rice field too. Definitely got a good lean on it. I like the palm trees in the background here. They're coming down from a low angle. It makes them look small. Makes them look lower than the roof of the silo. And just get some with the mountain in the background a bit more. Can't see so much of that today because of the cloud, but it's beautiful every day. Oh, it's getting pretty hot out here now. Sweat running into my eyes. Just a couple more though. I like this line of the yellow rice leading up to the silo. Okay, that'll do me. So there's just a bit of a look at the rice fields and the silos in the rice fields that, like I said, seem to be falling apart, seem to be more and more dilapidated each year. It doesn't look like people are really repairing them. Every now and again I used to come out, I used to see some guys down repairing the silo before the planting season begins, but these days they don't seem to be doing it so much. They're just letting them fall apart, and then they're just relying on their motorcycles to really give them the flexibility to be able to go home at lunchtime, which is a good thing, I guess. Thanks for coming out to the rice fields and taking some photos with me. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please check out this one next. Thanks very much for watching.